Imagine achieving your childhood dreams of becoming a doctor only to find out that conventional medical practice falls short of truly helping patients.
Okay, so I come from a family, a very typical Indian family who, you know the drill, right? Doctor, lawyer, engineer, all failure. Yeah. It was completely not what I had expected it to be. Wanted to do a surgery, hold the heart in my hand. I had my weaknesses, a lot of weaknesses, but I wanted to learn. Working for 36 hours, I mean, it just broke me. I was called the worst houseman. We felt like we were the problem. 1,000 patients a day. 1,000 patients a day. You have 2 minutes per patient. And when I raised problems like this up, I became the bad guy. I joined a cane clinic. My then bosses expected me to hit certain KPIs with each patient. That means I needed to prescribe medication that they didn't need. Running a clinic is definitely not a walk in the park.
There must have been weeks where there were no patients.
Yeah.
Did you ever doubted your decision?
Oh, many times. It was bad, Selina. I mean, things got very real. I couldn't sleep at night. I can't tell people that my eyes are open. So I packed my bags and I went off to Sabah. There's no way you're going to get your money back, right? Everything collapsed. One thing that you need to remember is you cannot trust anyone.
Join Disruptive Doctors.
I'm Dr. Selina, your host and co-founder of Disruptive Doctors. At Disruptive Doctors, we're building a platform to help doctors like you impact healthcare differently. In Postcall, we dive into the untold stories of doctors who are breaking the mold, trailblazers who are redefining what it means to be a doctor. This is Postcall Beyond the White Coat. Today, we're talking to Dr. Rubben, a doctor who's faced all these challenges and more, but didn't stop there. He went on to establish his own successful clinic, Cell 101, pioneering regenerative medicine in Malaysia. Curious to know how he turned setbacks into stepping stones? Stay tuned for a powerful story of resilience, reinvention, and redefining healthcare. This is Postcall Beyond the White Coat. Welcome, Rubben.
Hi, Selina. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Becoming a doctor was your childhood dream, so tell us about that.
Okay, so I come from a family, a very typical Indian family who, you know the drill, right? Doctor, lawyer, engineer. So I come from that kind of a family.
Or failure, number 4.
All failure, yeah. The rest are not accepted. So my mom used to work as a nurse. So I had a lot of exposure being in the hospital from a very young age. I was born in hospital Rubben. My mom worked as a nurse there and I ended up there as well. So my grandmother was a nurse as well. So being from that background, of course, what else they would expect their son to become, right? Become a doctor. So my grandparents actually put this into my mind from a very young age. If I remember correctly, from the age of 3. So that was all I had in mind, to become a doctor. There was nothing else in sight. So having this kind of exposure actually made me very excited. But to be frank, I had no idea why I wanted to become a doctor. It was purely peer pressure. So yeah, that's how it started. But along the way, of course, things changed.
It sounds like we both have the same background because my mother was a nurse. I also was, she worked in private, but I spent a lot of time in the hospitals as well and got to see what doctors are. And that was the only image that was planted in my head as well.
There you go. So it's not only Indian family in there.
Yeah. So Rubben, you and I, we go way back, right? When we were colleagues, like maybe over a decade ago, as housemaids in hospitals, Rubben, we both had common colleagues as well. I remember one of them even got me into trouble. We're not going to go into that today. But what was your experience like working in the public healthcare sector as a housemaid, as a medical officer?
So already mentioned that I did my housemanship in Rubben, but I'll not mention any names. So I'm going to be very honest. It was completely not what I had expected it to be. So I think you shared the same thing as well, Selina. Becoming a doctor, we always thought we were, high and mighty doctor. You're on top of the food chain kind of thing. But I think housemanship was a huge eye opener for me. It started off from the first posting. Once again, I'll not mention which posting, but during that posting, I think my ego just broke. I felt like, what am I doing here? This is not the place I want to be. So I wanted to become something in my mind, like, I wanted to do a surgery, hold the heart in my hand. That was what I expected. But when I started doing housemanship, and I mean, it's not so much about the bullying, but it's just the pressure, So I had to, I admit, I was not the best of houseman. I had my weaknesses, a lot of weaknesses, but I wanted to learn. Being put in a situation where, you are forced to stay back very late and come very early in the morning. And that time we had on-call, Selina. So it was not a shift system, right? Working for 36 hours. I mean, that breaks you. I used to sleep in the car and think whether I wanted to go back into the hospital. So it was a very, very, I think, beyond all expectations. It just broke me. But at the same time, so I have this character where I always try to find the positive. It was difficult, but I believe that it was a test. So basically going through the pressure, going through the scolding, making you feel like I was called the worst houseman, literally in front of the entire batch. And this was during my first posting. Mind you, I had no idea what I was doing. So it made me a stronger person. But along that way, Selina, so I had a lot of friends who could not go through. So I saw them breaking under the pressure, and it was, torturous. It just made them someone else. So yeah, this is housemanship in a nutshell to me. But it made me who I am today. So I have no regrets. But if you ask me whether I would go through the same thing again, I would have my reservations. But yeah.
Yeah, we definitely did go through a lot of this, except that I did not know you were going through it as well. I think a lot of us did not realize that all of us were actually going through the same thing, being called the worst houseman. I'm sure every single houseman has been called the worst houseman.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was mostly we mostly stay under the radar. But Rubben, you were actually one of the more reliable colleagues I had during housemanship. Someone I knew I could depend on. If I had to pass over to you, I knew you'd help me get it through. So yeah, this is a surprise hearing that you also had a difficult journey throughout housemanship.
Yeah. I mean, I think what was lacking back then, Selina, was the fact that we never really shared these problems with each other. I mean, we were friends and we used to go out and lunch together, but we never shared what we were going through. So maybe because there was not enough exposure, or we never had platforms like what you have created to actually speak about it. Everyone was keeping it inside, and maybe they're all okay. I'm the only bad one. But that's how it made us feel, Selina. We felt like we were the problem. But after looking into it, there's actually a problem with the system itself. It's not an individual thing. There's a larger picture to it. But I mean, thank you for what you said earlier. I'm glad that at least I wasn't a bully or something, but same vice versa, Selina. You were actually one of the few housemates that I was actually very close to. And it was good because that kept us going. I felt at least we had a small group, a support group. Yeah.
So what prompted you to leave the government service for the private sector?
That's a good question. So I was very happy when I was doing my MOship in ENT in Rubben. That was something that I actually liked. Unfortunately, we were obliged to comply to district posting. So I was posted to Klang. I'll not mention which KK, but some KK in Klang. That was, I kid you not, Selina, 1,000 patients a day. 1,000 patients a day. So I had to see approximately 120 patients per day. And you're talking about regular office hours with a lunch break in between. And there was absolutely no chance for me to even speak to the patient, Selina. I mean, let's be realistic. You have 2 minutes per patient. Hi, how are you? Where are you from? Finish, 2 minutes are over, How do I talk about your problem or whether your sugar levels are going down? We have absolutely no time. This was something that I did not enjoy. I was basically going to work because I had to. So I made a tough call. I actually gave a 24 hours resignation, Selina. Not something I would encourage people to do because you actually have to pay the government back.
What
So a
went
lot
through
of
that time? Like, what was there a specific breaking point that made you decide tomorrow I'm just not going to work anymore. I'm going to resign.
it's a sensitive question, but yeah. So I had colleagues, seniors in the clinic that I was working in. While I was seeing 110 patients, they saw 20. So that I could not accept it. And when I raised problems like this up, I became the bad guy. So that was my cut off, Selina. I told myself, look, I'm not going to go through this anymore. And I just put my resignation and came. So
I
yeah,
think it is quite a common theme. I mean, one of the hospitals I worked for as specialists, because I was at MO there and I saw the specialists, they had hierarchies. The senior ones did one call a month, the junior ones did 10.
wow,
And yeah, and if I remember specifically one specialist, he was sick and he asked one of the seniors to do his call. So she said, okay, I'll take your call. But the following one, you have to take my call. So the following one, she had 0 and he had 11.
wow. But that's a huge difference.
Yeah, so sounds like it's a very systemic issue. But I do
Right.
understand what you're saying about seeing 100 patients a day because I mean, I was posted to one of the rural clinics in Negeri Sembilan. And I think there was a day where one of my colleagues had to be for a meeting, another one was sick, and I had to man the whole clinic myself. And I saw close to 100 before lunch itself. I don't know whether it was before lunch itself, but I needed help. And seriously, sometimes I put 5 patients and I clocked all 5 at one go. If it was a family comes in, I clocked them. It was all practically spinal reflex. There was no time for me to talk to them. There was no way I could have any conversation with them. URTI, it's like, URTI, okay, I'm going to call my clinic assistant. Okay, you know what to prescribe. Go ahead and do that. So it was like a conveyor belt in the factory.
Extremely robotic already. It's just like, but that's the thing, Selina. Well, I thought I had it bad. Yours is worse. One family in one go. Wow.
Yeah, but thankfully it wasn't every day. It was certain days only, and I had to do what I had to do to keep it going and the patient flow moving. Yeah, I think sometimes you just do what you need to do.
Great.
So
Agreed. Yeah.
what happened after you left?
Okay. So this is two worlds apart. When I was in KKM, this was the issues I had. The moment I left and I came into the private sector, I joined a chain clinic franchise, right? So that was completely different. I was happy. I had more time with my patients. I was still seeing about 100 patients a day, but it was throughout the entire day. But then the other issue came. So you're running a business. There are certain expectations. My then bosses expected me to hit certain KPIs with each patient. And by hitting certain KPIs, that means I needed to prescribe medication that they didn't need, namely antibiotics. And I can't do this, Selina. So I'm not an antibiotic person unless you really need it, right? I don't just see somebody, oh, you're having cough flu, please take antibiotics. But I was forced to do it. And I kid you not, they're not simple antibiotics. You're not talking about amoxicillin. You're talking about azithromycin level kind of antibiotics. That was a huge no-no for me. So I tried to manage for a year. And once again, it was, you have this expectation in yourself. And I was just not meeting mine. I felt I was doing more bad than good. So yeah, that was a huge shocker to me as well. I did not expect it to happen.
How did you what started going through your mind when you were in this chain clinic and then there was all these expectations on you needing to prescribe medication that patients did not need? Like, what were you going through at that time?
I was actually in a bit of a dilemma because I know that you need to make money for the business to survive. I mean, you always want to do it in the right way, right? And I mean, it can be both ways. Some people may say it's fine, some people may not say it's fine, but ultimately, I think when you're doing something, Selina, you have to be at peace with it. If we ourselves are not happy with what we're doing, that's basically waking up every day and hoping that I don't have to go to work. So this was what I was actually feeling. And my work was easy. So I could actually literally walk to work. It was extremely convenient. There was good pay. The salary was good, but I was just not at peace. So I was not happy with what I was doing.
Okay, so is that how you establish your own clinic, Clinic Medica?
So I said, look, I'm going to do this the right way. Let's open my own clinic. Wow. So yeah, that happened pretty quickly as well. I gave my notice. I needed some funds. So I got my parents and my in-laws to help me. I took some loans. So I did it the hard way. I was not born with a golden spoon. Took some loans and then I got a clinic set up bare minimum. But that's when the next battle started. Yeah.
Tell us about the next battle, like the challenges you faced when you started your own clinic.
Yeah, so running a clinic is definitely not a walk in the park. I'm sure a lot of people already know this by now, especially when they attend your events, because we talk a lot about this. We are not trained to do business. Okay, we had absolutely, I mean, I was not. So I had absolutely no knowledge on how to run a business. I thought I see patients, I can make money. So, I did that typical calculation. One patient, I can make 30 ringgit. If I see 100 patients a day, I can make this much. So I did that and I went in. And I kid you not, Selina, for the first 1 week, I had approximately 1 to 2 patients a day. And I sat down in the clinic for 12 hours, hoping that people would walk in. I had 1 to 2 patients. And this was the best part. My first patient who came in, I actually took the money. I kept it under a small altar in my clinic. And I said, wow, this is my first money. I'm going to make a lot of more money after this. But that was not how it was. It was really, really challenging. It was not where you open a clinic. Some people actually, you must have heard those days, they said you open a clinic, automatically you're going to get 100, 200 patients. That's not how it works now. So you have 10 clinics in the same room. How do you expect people to walk to you? I mean, who are you? You've got doctors 20 years more senior to you sitting in the clinic right beside. How do you compete with them? So this was a learning curve for me. But you've already spent so much of money, you open the clinic, you got to do something, right? So I had to find other approaches on how to actually attract customers to come. So it was a bit of a journey. I started to print flyers. I went to all the condominiums nearby and put, these flyers into their post box, come to the clinic, we've got promotion. I started to use social media. I even went to the extent of organizing a blood donation for that area. So everyone came and then I got food trucks to come in. And then they were like selling food. So it was quite happening. I also tried to do something different because I realized that, so I put my clinic in Tropicana, right? Medica is in Tropicana. So I realized that the customers there like to talk. So you have to find what they want, right? Because every area may have different expectations. So they like to talk. So what I did was every day after seeing the patient, I would give them a follow-up call. Every patient. So I didn't have that many, right? Maybe 10 patients. I would call the 10 patients and find out, how are you doing? How was the medication? Are you better? If you're not better, come back again. So then worked for me, Selina, because the word of mouth actually started to spread. Then I started to see more patients. So that's how I actually picked up.
Well, you sound very resourceful. I mean, to a point where I'm sure there must have been weeks where there were no patients.
Yeah.
Did you ever doubt did you ever doubted your decision to open up a clinic at any point of that time?
Oh, many times. I even went into, I felt things that I've never felt before. Like people talk about anxiety, right? So it's something that I actually had to go through as well because, you have absolutely nothing, there's no money in the bank account. You have to put food on the plate. I was married. You have so many commitments. And it was a very difficult period. I used to stop the car by the side of the road and just wonder, what am I doing? Is it the right thing? Should I go back and work for someone? At least you have a salary. It was bad, Selina. Things got very real. But yeah,
Did you manage to pull yourself out?
so I am a strong believer of the saying that the show must go on no matter what. So you have to find a way. You can never give up. So this was something that was passed on to me from my parents. They kept telling me this, My mother used to tell me the story about the train that goes up the hill and when it got tough, the train kept pushing. And I remember this kind of things. And I told myself, the show has to go on. Like you said, I had to find resources. I had to talk to people. I had to find new ways of doing things in order to make it work. But that being said, Selina, not everyone is so lucky. Some actually have a lot of difficulty to find a way out. And that's why you see things like clinics closing down, people can't manage. And there was no disruptive doctors. I didn't have many doctors to talk to. So we were alone. And that was actually very painful. And it took a toll on our health as well, on the body as well.
Were you going through all this by yourself?
Unfortunately, yes. So I couldn't share it with my family because I did not want them to be worried. Of course, I did speak to my wife a little bit, but you can't share certain things because, I couldn't sleep at night. I can't tell people that my eyes are open, I'm looking at the ceiling. You can't share things like this because it's very personal. But yeah, I was actually going through a lot by myself.
Okay, before we continue, I want to share something special with our listeners. If you're a doctor considering a career shift but don't know where to start, Disruptive Doctors offers a non-clinical pathfinder workshop. This workshop is designed to help doctors like you explore new opportunities beyond clinical practice and how to choose the right path for you. We also have a GP clinic solution on our platform that's designed to help doctors who are either practicing doctors or who are thinking of opening their own clinic on ways to help you succeed in your clinic. Okay, Rubben, so, starting a business is risky, and especially if you don't have the right partners. So you made a bold decision to pack up, left your family here so you can move to Sabah and start up a business, which unfortunately did not work out. So what happened there?
Okay, so once again, so I'm a bit of a risk taker, Selina. So when my clinic picked up a little bit, I decided to jump again. So I managed to meet some people who told me that Sabah was, the grass was greener in Sabah. There are more opportunities. You can do medical tourism, things like that. So at that point of time, I wasn't really thinking straight. It sounded really nice. I thought, okay, what the hell? Let's just go. So I packed my bags and I went off to Sabah in 2018, right? This was approximately 4 or 5 years after I started off my clinic. And when I went to Sabah, the idea was basically to establish a clinic, something to do with wellness. So that was the idea. Now, for this project, I actually had partners, and this was the first time I actually worked very closely with partners. That was a huge learning curve on its own. So you are meeting people you don't know. You never grew up with them. You don't know their characters. You just have to trust what they say. And I was not very savvy as well. I did not have people to advise me. I thought, well, it sounds nice. Let's just go. So going to Sabah, initially, of course, everything is beautiful at first. So it looked very positive. We actually put in some money and we got the clinic up and running. We were doing applications for the license. Everything was going very well, right? We were meeting people and all. Along the way, I had to face something which I think a lot of people have faced as well, where your partner pulls a fast one. So the promise given to me was there would be funding for the projects that we were doing. I had to run it. Unfortunately, along the way, I found out that that was not true. So there was no funding which was coming in, and we had to sustain with whatever we could make. And it's not easy to start a business in a place you're not familiar with absolutely no funds. So that was a huge letdown for me, Selina, because the clinic just started doing okay. And I was using all of the profits to actually start off this project in Sabah. So I threw a lot of money there. And when things, yeah, it was my own money. So I did not take any loan or I did not borrow from anyone at this point of time. But of course, my partner did put in some as well. To me, that was everything I had. So I just took everything and dumped in that. So when things went down, of course, there's no way you're going to get your money back, right? Everything collapsed. We had to shut everything. And whether good or bad, COVID hit. So COVID hit at end of 2019. And by 2020, things were already closed. So my last visit to Sabah was during Christmas 2019. I won't forget. That was the last. And during that time. So after that, when I came back, COVID hit and I met my then partner and I told him, look, this is not the way I want things to happen. But of course, I don't want to burn any bridges. So I said, I'll just take a step back, just remove me from everything. So that's what happened. But because I spent so much of money and because COVID hit, my clinic, which was seeing approximately 50 over patients a day, everything just went bust. Nobody wanted to come to the clinic because during COVID, clinics was that, I'm only coming when I'm doing a swab. If not, I'm not going to the clinic. So business took a hit and I had staff. I even had to hire a doctor to run the clinic and I can't just cut them off, right? We have to pay our staffs. So then, Selina, after 5 years of running the business, I had to take a huge bank loan just to sustain the business. So you can imagine what I was going through at that point. I lost all my money and I had to take another loan just to sustain the business. So yeah, things were once again not looking too good after that scenario. But
How did you overcome that?
so this is where I had to ask myself, was I going to go back and sit in the clinic? was I going to use all the skills that I have that you learn over the years to do something different. So this is when I actually actively got myself involved in regenerative medicine. So I went and started working in a laboratory. I started doing a lot of talks for them, a lot of campaigns for them, and I pulled my way through. So I was not working for someone, but I was working with someone. So one thing that I would like to share is once you start running your own business, it's not easy to go back and work for someone. It's not easy. Yeah? It's a different feeling. So, so my advice is if you're going to come out on your own, you have to be prepared because it's very difficult to go back and work for someone again. But so I managed to pull my way through from that aspect. And thankful enough, during COVID, regenerative medicine actually picked up a lot all over the world. So there was a lot of awareness going on. People were talking about it. And so that's how I came out of it.
What was your biggest learning takeaway from this whole experience with business partners, and running clinics? What was your biggest takeaway on this whole experience with Sabah?
Now I can share. But you asked me back then, I wouldn't have told you this. So one thing that you need to remember is you cannot trust anyone, Selina. Okay, when it comes to business, I'm not talking about friendship or family. Yeah? When it comes to business, everything needs to be prim and proper. You got to put everything on black and white. You got to ensure that you have covered all the loopholes or any possible bad thing that can happen. You need to make sure that you're covered because business is like that, Selina. It may look very beautiful at first, but when things go down under it, it gets really scary. So this is something that I would advise anyone who wants to open a business with partners. Make sure everything is black and white. Protect yourself. Get your lawyers to draft the documents, sign the agreements. Make sure that if anything happens, you are not involved in a negative way. So I give you an example, like my Sabah project, because we took a clinic and because COVID hit, who's going to pay for the clinic? Luckily, I managed to actually put some documents in place on my own, which managed to protect me. Otherwise, I would have to pay for that clinic there as well. Things would have been very bad. So you need to ensure that you are carefully protected or well protected when you want to run a business with partners. And I would say the second message that I would like to share is please properly think before you make a huge decision, like especially opening a business. You got to ensure that you are secure financially. You got to ensure that you have all of your options on the table. So you have a backup plan, a contingency plan. Don't just jump into something because it can be very frustrating or stressful. These are the two things I would advise.
Especially if you're opening up a clinic, you're the doctor, and the other side is a business person. Anything regarding managing of patients and all that, it would fall on you regardless of who else is on the table, who else is in the partnership, correct?
They'll come and find you first.
Because you're the
So
doctor.
big doctor, yes. It's practically your problem. Your partner can walk away clean.
Right. Well, that is very, very sage advice. I think a lot of doctors who start up clinics, some of them even started as a enterprise instead of a private limited company. So they basically take on all that risk themselves, like as an individual.
I think this is very good advice, Selina, because we don't know about this. So even I opened mine as a sole proprietorship initially. So sole proprietor is still okay. But if you go into an enterprise or a partnership and it's not a Selina Berhad or a limited liability, you put yourself at a lot of risk. A lot of risk. So yeah.
Okay. So what? I know you mentioned earlier that you somehow got into regenerative medicine during COVID, and now you finally established Cell 101. What is Cell 101?
Okay. So regenerative medicine, I think it's something that still has a lot of room to grow. So many people still are not very aware about how things are actually developing or working in regenerative medicine. So basically, the entire idea of regenerative medicine is to find an access or a way to enhance the way your body works on its own. So it goes to a cellular level. This is what everyone says, right? Now, it's not just Malaysia. I mean, regenerative medicine is something that is growing all over the world. People have started to use elements of this treatment to actually do the procedures for patients. Like, for instance, you must have heard about things like immunotherapy, where they take out cells and they use it to fight with cancer. Yeah. So for me, it actually started off much earlier than Sabah. It actually started off when I was running my clinic. I had a lot of exposure because my clients started to ask me about, do you do regenerative medicine treatments or do you have ways to enhance the body? So I did a lot of learning, Selina. I started reading a lot, started talking to people from other countries, scientists, doctors. I wanted to understand what the industry or the segment was all about. So if you ask me today, it is definitely much more mature. But that being said, there's still a lot of regulation and guidelines that need to be placed before this becomes mainstream. But it seems to be very positive. So basically, if you look at, let's take sports injury, for instance, a lot of specialists, a lot of orthopedic surgeons have started to look at regenerative medicine as a more or a less invasive way to actually stimulate recovery, like for sports injuries. So it is an industry that is evolving very quickly. But that being said, in Malaysia, it's not bad. Malaysia is actually doing very well. There's a lot of research, a lot of work being done. But if you're looking at the forefront, the people who are actually doing a lot of work and they are far in front, you're talking about countries like China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan. So these countries are actually doing so much of work. They have reached points where they're doing things that we would not have heard about, Selina, in med school. So you're talking about what? Fighting off cancer and killing the cells and bringing it to normal levels, things like that. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So part of establishing Cell 101, in the name itself, 101 means basics, 101, right? So the idea was basically to create a platform where we give access to doctors to actually learn about the basics of whether stem cells or immune cells or regenerative medicine, to learn about the basic. So part of what we're doing now, Selina, I mean, the company is 3 years old. Initially, when we started, we tried to do collaborations with universities, get some R&D work done. Now what we're doing is we're actually building a facility which will give access to doctors to come and see how things are done on ground level. So before you even talk about treatment and what you're going to use it for, you have to understand what it is first. Okay, like, my favorite question when I talk about things like stem cells is I'll ask you, have you seen one before? No. If you've not seen it, how do you talk about it? How do you share it with people? So we want to become that platform, Selina. So by next year, early next year, we would actually have a facility ready for doctors to actually come and see and learn. This is how things are done. And if you're talking about things which are more advanced, like if you want to use it for treatment, you're going to use it for some therapy. So we get the right doctors, the experts to come and speak about it and do the training. Like we have an event on November where we're bringing some partners from Taiwan to actually share with doctors on how they are actually using immunotherapy for cancer treatment, how they're doing it in their hospitals. So we actually have something like that coming up. So this is what we do, Selina. The idea of this company is basically to create awareness and to do things in the right way. That's why I established Cell 101.
I think that is very, very important because I think when we were in medical school and when we were training, not many people had smartphone. Information was not at your fingertips. Now your patients know more than you do. So how do you compete now, and how do you still stay relevant if patients are asking you about immunotherapy, patients are asking you about stem cell, and you don't even know what it is?
Spot on. So if you don't know what Google knows, then you're going to lose to your patient because they would have read much more than you. So this is where a lot of exposure is required, Selina. You have to do things that Google doesn't know. So a lot of things that we do, I've tested this on ChatGPT. So I actually click and I see whether they can answer the question. Also, they can't because this industry is still very new. But you have to get that kind of exposure. And where do you go for that kind of exposure? Because let's be frank, Selina, there's still a commercial, there's still a commercial value to this industry. So when there's a commercial value to something, there's always going to be good and there's always going to be bad. So where you get your information from is crucial. You can't just go online, type, how does immunotherapy work for cancer? How does stem cells work for this problem? And then trust everything that you read. Because you're going to get things done purely for marketing purpose, which may not be true. So this is where we have to be one step ahead. You've got to get the information, the accurate information, so you will be able to answer the questions that your patients are asking. Because I'm very sure, and I'm sure you've gone through this as well, a lot of people talk about this kind of treatments now. Not just when they're sick, because some people believe this to be the elixir of youth. So they want to, I want to look like this for the rest of my life. So how do you answer questions like that? If you can't, they're going to label you as a bad doctor and find someone else. But this is a challenge, Selina. I think this is something that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Yeah.
What do you think are the biggest challenge in or challenges with bringing this to mainstream medicine, especially from our fellow doctors? Because you and I, Rubben, like back then, we were all trained in sick care and sick care only. Nobody knows what healthcare really looks like. So what do you think are the biggest challenges in this?
So I think there would be three main challenges. One is what you just mentioned. We have been trained to only treat sick patients symptomatically. This needs to change. And I believe there are lots of platforms now that are focusing on more holistic, more wholesome approaches when it comes to treating someone. You don't just treat the symptoms. You got to treat the underlying problems. You got to change the lifestyle. You've got to do so many things before you look at the symptoms. This is problem number one. You've got to start opening your mind. If you're going to be extremely conventional and you're going to just say, look, if you are, I give you a simple example. If you're diabetic, you take metformin. If you take metformin and you eat rice 7 times a day, it's not going to make a difference. Correct? So that is problem number one. Problem number two, I think it's more towards the regulation. So it's still something that needs a lot of work. I think Malaysia is doing pretty well. There are lots of bodies who are actually involved in trying to regulate, but internationally, some countries are still, no, don't talk about this to me. So regulation is a problem, but it is being worked on. Ultimately, when this is okay, then you start seeing this coming more into mainstream. And I think the third problem is the industry itself. So there has to be some form of direction in the industry itself that focuses more on the proper approach. So how do you actually get the products out there? What are the work that has been done? What are the investigations that need to be done? Three needs to be sorted out before this becomes mainstream. So it sounds easy, but it's a lot of work. I think it has been something that has been going around for the last 20 years. It's not new. So when people listen to stem cells, they're like, oh, it's very new. No, it's not new. It's been around for more than 20 years. It's just that it is not easy to get this on the books because it is biologics. It's not like medicine where you take something and you know something is going to happen. This is biologics. It works in your body and it works differently in everyone's body. I think that is one of the issues that will eventually be addressed as well.
How do you see this field evolving for the future?
Well, it would be biased for me to give my comment, but if you ask me, I believe that this is the way forward. Because I think recently, even with things like COVID, Selina, it has actually challenged conventional medicine in different ways. So if we are going to rely on things, it's like basically using what we used to use last time, Nokia 111 something, right? Yeah. So it's like basically using that and not willing to change to a smartphone. If you're going to keep saying that, the only way to go is conventional. No, things have to change. So to me, this is the future, Selina, where we actually use cellular biotechnology or regenerative medicine to actually treat people from a more basic level. And that actually gives us better health. It is good for prevention. It gives us more, what they call it, health span. We don't talk about lifespan, we talk about health span. So you're healthy for as long as you live. So these are things that are potentially going to happen, and this will be the industry to move forward. But this is my belief. Other doctors may have different views.
What has been most rewarding for you in your journey in Cell 101 so far?
So when you see things that we are not normally used to seeing, for instance, I give you an example. When you see cartilage regenerating in a knee, that is satisfaction, Selina, because you defy what you have been taught. You learn something so new. It's like a miracle, but just not in science. So this is my fire, Selina. When I see things like this happening, when I see improvement in certain conditions that are very complex, but you can see something, whether in the lab or whether in clinical setting, this is my fire, Selina. This is my reward. So money is important. It's important for everyone. When you run a business, you need to make money. But there must be something that drives you to come to work every day. This is my fire. Beating the conventional methods, breaking the norm, what you put behind you, that to be different. I enjoy seeing medicine evolving in this way. This is my fire.
I like what you mentioned earlier, defying what we were taught, because what we thought we were taught were the law. it is what it is. Nothing else can change. I really like that because I myself had been diagnosed with Graves. I was on medication and medication did not work. Yeah, I actually ended up in a red zone actually, pending storm. Medication, I took long-term medication for 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And my endocrinologist told me, yeah, I think maybe we should try radioactive iodine to destroy the gland once and for all. Initially, I thought, yes, that's the way to go because it's been practiced since the 1970s. So that is the way to go. And then I started questioning because I asked, like, what about the eye disease? Will I never get it? And this was what he said. You will always, always be at risk for this eye disease, even though you've gone through radioactive iodine. And that was when I pulled the handbrakes and decided, okay, this is that. There will be, if I went through with this, my thyroid gland will be gone. And if there was ever a zombie apocalypse, I definitely did because there'll be no more medication, right? So I started thinking and started exploring other ways of practicing medicine. And I came across clinical hypnotherapy. And I managed to use clinical hypnotherapy to completely overcome this whole thing. I was medication free. I became medication free for like shortly after that. And I've been medication free since like 2, 3 years. My endocrinologist was very, very surprised because he didn't think this could happen based on the blood results and how I was progressing. So there is definitely like reward, like you feel satisfaction when you do something which what you were taught is wrong, right?
Yes. Good for you, Selina. But I'm actually shocked that you don't look like you've. I mean, you look really good, right? And I see your hiking but going through that, wow, that's not a joke. It's a serious problem.
Yeah, and I've been medication free. I'm so glad. Like, I actually did not go through with the radioactive iodine, and I decided to try something different. I know my peers would probably be, our peers from the medical fraternity, right? As long as it's not clear or there's not enough papers, it's all woo woo. I agree because as a doctor, I knew what I needed a task for. So as I was going through therapy, I knew, okay, I need to check these levels to make sure it's just not just in my head, and there was actual results, and I could see results on my blood.
There you
So
go.
yeah. So now you're an entrepreneur, or rather a doctorpreneur. Like reflecting on your journey so far. I mean, from struggling to set up your own clinic. I mean, even before that, you were fighting with, the system, a system that you felt did not support you, and then needing to learn fast about business and going through tough partnership, setting up Cell 101. Like, what would you describe your whole journey in a nutshell?
Oh, it's been a roller coaster, Selina. But but I'm enjoying it. To me, this is a learning experience that money can't buy. So I'm enjoying it. But if you ask me whether I would say for others to do the same thing, I mean, if you know that there are certain things you don't have to go through and you can actually take sort of a shortcut, why not? Why go through so much of difficulty when you can cut some of them? But you still need to face obstacles. You need to get the experience because that makes us who we are, right, Selina?
Yep, definitely. What about for doctors who are thinking of leaving medicine, starting their own practice? What's your advice for them?
I would say go for it. You see, we all need to find out what our strengths are. Everybody has a different strength. You have to do something that suits your strength. If you're going to do something that doesn't suit your strength, you're not going to be happy. So if the doctor feels that, this is not where I'm supposed to be, I'm good at talking, go join something which requires you to talk. Or if you're good at doing sales, do something which involves sales. Or if it's nothing to do with medicine at all, maybe you're good at making cakes, go open a cakery or do what you're good at. Having a title of a medical doctor doesn't mean that you need to actually practice. It is just something that you have done for whatever reason, but it helps you to propagate yourself in business. It can, because you are still someone that people may feel comfortable with or they may trust you because you have a reputation. But you can use that to go into any field that you want. So that's why one of the reasons, I don't mind sharing this. One of the reasons I like what you do, Selina, especially with Disruptive Doctors, the events that you host, is you create this platform where they get to speak to people who think differently. That itself is a good stepping stone, because at least it gives us the idea, oh, I can do something which I always wanted to do because someone is already doing something similar. So that's why I like this platform a lot.
Thank you for that encouragement, Rubben. So finally, what do you think are the most important qualities for a doctor to succeed in entrepreneurship?
So it is individual, but if you ask me, what are the few things that you need to do is, like what I mentioned earlier, never give up. Because you never know when the tides will turn. You can fall today, you can get up tomorrow. So you have to be very, very committed and dedicated to what you're doing. But at the same time, please do your homework. Don't just jump. So do a little bit of homework, understand what you are going to get yourself into. And most importantly is find your strengths. That is a very, very, I realized my strength was talking, Selina. You know when I realized this? When I was doing my my housemanship. So I realized that I was able to talk to a patient and calm them down. And I was doing pleural tapping, Selina, and the patient was just chill. So I realized that, my strength was basically to talk. If you ask me to do a procedure or you ask me to do an exam, I'll fail. But when you asked me to talk, I had a strength. So when I found that was my strength, that's why my business now involves a lot of talking. So you've got to find what you're strong at and harness that energy. That's the most important thing.
Okay, thanks, Rubben. So, guys, if you're enjoying a conversation and considering exploring new career path, remember to check out our non-clinical pathfinder workshop at Disruptive Doctors, and also check out our GP Clinic Solutions, which is designed to help doctors and GP practitioners to succeed in your clinic. Also check out, like what Rubben mentioned, our annual Disruptive Doctors Conference, which happens every August, where like-minded doctors come together and share their ideas to impact healthcare differently. Now that wraps up another episode of Postcall Beyond the White Coat. I hope you found our conversation with Dr. Rubben as thought-provoking as I did, from the trials of clinical practice to the world of cellular biology and entrepreneurship. So if you're a doctor and you're ready to impact healthcare differently, join us at Disruptive Doctors. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll continue to explore how doctors like you are changing the game. Until then, I'm Dr. Selina. Take care and keep disrupting the norm.
Thank you.
Join Disruptive Doctors. Oh, Disruptive Doctors. Impact.